How are you guys doing? Today is Wednesday, March 30th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do a greatest of all time profile, a GOAT profile for Sergio Ramos. The GOATed Spanish defender for PSG turns 36 today, and what I'm going to do with this profile is I'm going to zoom in and look at what he's been able to do from the very beginning to the very end of his incredible professional career that many regard as one of the greatest careers that a defender can ever have in his lifetime. Sergio Ramos is a player that has won multiple trophies for club and country, very accomplished, not to mention that as a defender, he also has 100+ career goals. Sergio Ramos is a wild anomaly that you see at the strike or at the defender position that I don't think you're really going to see again. Standing at 6 foot, he's just, I think the best way to really kind of describe his game is just he's very crafty with how he plays. Of course, being a central defender, you have to be very tough. You have to be very aggressive. He does pick up a lot of yellow cards. He does get in a lot of people's face. He is the mad dog of the team a lot of times, and a lot of times teams usually need that. But I think the more underrated value of his game is that I do think Sergio Ramos at a lot of times is the smartest player on the field. I do think that even just his simple, quick twitch reactions have allowed him to be one of the world's best, even in his mid-30s. I don't even think Sergio Ramos is even done. And once he kind of gets his legs under him at PSG, I can't wait to see him really get running once he's officially the full-time center back for PSG after being arguably, if not inarguably, Real Madrid's best defender that they've ever had. So, getting into Sergio Ramos, originally born in Gama, Spain, he would find himself playing for the Camas youth team before getting moved to Sevilla. He, of course, would get moved up through the Sevilla organization. He would come up, that would be the team that would bring him up in his age 17 season in 2003-2004. In his very first La Liga season, in which he made his debut, he would go on to start 3 of the 7 La Liga matchups he played, as Sevilla would go on to finish with the 6th best record in all of Spain. That was Sergio Ramos' very first season, and even in addition to that, Sevilla would even go all the way to the semifinals of the Copa del Rey. Once they made it to the semifinals, they would find themselves losing to Real Madrid, and of course, that was that. Of course, even in those seasons, they got a chance to really see Real Madrid, but I don't really know if he was playing like that. But Sergio Ramos' second season with Sevilla would be his age 18 season in 2004-2005. In that season, he would go on to start all 31 games, and in the one season that he started all games for Sevilla, he actually would go on to add a couple of goals and add a couple of assists for himself on the offensive side. Not to mention that even he was able to help Sevilla finish with the 6th best record in Spain for the year. Also in 2004-2005, the team would actually lose in the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey this season, and they even ended in the 3rd round of the UEFA of Europa League that season. Of the UEFA Cup that season, but following that season, he would go on to get moved to Real Madrid in his age 19 season in 2005-2006. And of course, being Spanish, of course, is a very big honor to play for one of the 2 big Spanish clubs. And once he got moved to Real, he was virtually there for over a decade, from 2005 till the end of 2021. He was there for 16 seasons to get a sense of it. But his very first of his 16 seasons in Real was his age 19 season in 2005-2006. In that season, he would go on to start 33 of the 34 La Liga matchups he played in a season where Real Madrid would finish with the La Liga title that season. They finished as the runners-up in La Liga that year. But specifically looking at how he fared in La Liga in that season, he would finish with 4 goals himself as a defender. And of course, he would go on to do his best with the defensive stats, and I wish I had the defensive stats ahead of me, but it was so far back that they actually don't have them. But following that 2005-2006 season with Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos would prove himself ready for the World Cup in 2006 in Germany with Spain. He would go on to play 3 matchups as Spain would end up losing in the FIFA World Cup in the round of 16. And the 6 matchups he played, Sergio Ramos would make sure, or the team would allow 3 goals, as the team actually had 1 clean sheet that he could be very proud of. But looking at how Spain fared in that specific World Cup, they would end up beating Ukraine 4-0 in that first matchup. They would beat Tunisia 3-1, and then they would beat Saudi Arabia 1-0. They would end up losing in the round of 16 to France, as that would be the game that would eventually knock them out. But then following that 2006 World Cup, Sergio Ramos, after just being recently called up to the international team as a teenager, he, of course, would return for his second full season in Real Madrid, his age 20 season in 2006-2007. In this season, he will go on to start all 33 La Liga matchups in a season where Real Madrid would go on to win La Liga. That would be the very first trophy that he would be able to, of course, bring home with the team. As within that particular 2006-2007 season, he would go on to finish with 5 goals. That would be the very first time he finished with 5 goals as a defender. He also added 3 assists, which, very tough to do for any defender really in any season ever. Taking a look also at how Real Madrid fared outside of that, they would go on to lose in the round of 16 of the Copa del Rey, as particularly they would end up losing specifically to Real Betis on away goals. But also they would lose in the round of 16 in Champions League in 2006-2007, as the team that would knock Real Madrid out this year would be Bayern Munich. They would get knocked out by Milan, as Milan would end up winning Champions League this year. That would be Ramos' second season in Real Madrid, as the only trophy he took home that year would be the La Liga trophy, which is, of course, a very big trophy to take home in the first place. But this would go on to lead to his third season with Real Madrid, his age 21 season in 2007-2008. In that season, he would go on to start all 33 La Liga games in a season where Real Madrid would repeat as champions of La Liga. Real Madrid actually has not repeated since 2007-2008. Even before that, the last time they had won back-to-back was 89 and 90, and that was at the end of a stretch where they won 5 years in a row. So there was a very historic season for Real that season. Even that season, he would go on to double what he had done the year before with 5 goals and 3 assists on the offensive end, helping Real Madrid do what they needed to do on the defensive end to make sure that they would secure the best record in Spain. They would go on to finish up as runners-up in the Supercopa de España, the Spanish Super Cup. They would end up losing 6-3 on aggregates to Sevilla, as Sergio Ramos scored Real Madrid's last goal of the tournament, but it wouldn't be close to enough. However, in the round of 16 in the Copa del Rey, they would end up losing again, as the team that would end up knocking Real out would end up being Mallorca. Mallorca would lose to Getafe. Getafe would lose in the final to Valencia. But of course, outside of that, they would also make it to the round of 16 in Champions League in 2007-2008, as within this particular season, they would end up losing to Roma in this round of 16. Roma lost to Manchester United in the quarterfinals, and Manchester United went on to win Champions League on penalties versus Chelsea that season. That's how, of course, that year would come to an end. Following that third season with Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos would compete with Spain at the 2008 Euros. In the 2008 Euros, they would go on to make it out of the group stage, as after they beat Russia 4-1, they would beat Sweden 2-1, and they would beat Greece 2-1. Once they made it to the knockout stage, they would make it to the quarterfinals. They would beat Italy on penalties after a 0-0 draw. In the semifinals, Spain would force a clean sheet, beating Russia 3-0. And once they made it to the final, they would end up beating Germany 1-0, as their lone goal came in the 33rd minute from Fernando Torres. That would be the second time that Spain would win the Euros, so that would be a very big win for this Spain squad, as the last time they had won it was 1964. So, of course, this would be the very first time he would win an international trophy with Spain, and at that point, the only trophy he had won was La Liga. So, of course, this would be a very big moment for Sergio Ramos, as within this Euro tournament, he would really do his best. But following that 2008 season, that would see Spain win the Euros. Sergio Ramos would return to Real Madrid for his fourth season in his age 22 season in 2008-2009. In his age 22 season, he would start all 32 of the La Liga games he played in a season where Real Madrid would finish runners-up in the season. Taking a look at how this particular season would end, this would be the season in which La Liga would be won officially by Barcelona. Barcelona won it by about 9 points. But in this La Liga season, Sergio Ramos was able to add 4 goals and a couple of assists. This is the 4th season in a row that a defender finished with at least 4 goals in a season. You don't see that happen very often now. He was a very big part of the scoring option there. He and Real Madrid were responsible for conceding 38 goals in the 32 matches he played, as he finished with a double-digit amount of clean sheets on the year. Finishing that 2008-2009 season as well, Real Madrid would go on to lose in the round of 32 in the Copa del Rey. They would go on to lose in the round of 16 in Champions League that season as well, as this season they would lose to Liverpool. Liverpool would lose to Chelsea in the quarterfinals. Chelsea would lose to Barcelona in the semifinals, as Barca went on to beat Man U in the final. But in that 2008-2009 season, the only trophy that Spain was able to win was the Supercopa de España. They would go on to beat Valencia 6-5 in the final after they were down 3-2 after the first leg. In the second leg, it would be Sergio Ramos who would end up actually giving Real Madrid their second goal in the within the leg, actually tying the aggregate up at 4 to help Real Madrid eventually come from behind and overcome. This would be the first time that they would win the Supercopa de España since Sergio Ramos had gotten there. But of course, following that 4th season with Real Madrid, he would return for his 5th season with the team, his age 23 season in 2009-2010. In that season, he would go on to start all 33 La Liga games he played in a season where Real Madrid would finish as runners-up in La Liga for the second year in a row. As this year, La Liga would go on to be won by Barcelona by just 3 points. In this season, they would also go on to finish in the round of 32 in the Copa del Rey as well. As specifically in the round of 32, Real Madrid would find themselves losing, or they found themselves on the losing end versus Alcorcón. But in addition to that, they were also able to finish in the round of 16. They would lose in the round of 16 in Champions League for what would be the 6th year in a row, it looks like, as this season Real Madrid would end up losing to Lyon. Lyon would make it all the way to the semifinals where they lost to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich would lose to Inter Milan in the 2010 Champions League final. That's how that season would end for Real Madrid, as they would be relatively trophyless. But the very next season, they would go on to sign Cristiano Ronaldo, and a lot would change for the team. But before they signed Cristiano Ronaldo, all teams would be playing in the 2010 Euros. Or the 2010 World Cup, I'm sorry. In the 2010 World Cup, Spain would go on to make it out of their group stage, as they ended up losing to Switzerland. They ended up beating Honduras 2-0 before beating Chile 2-1. Once they made it to the round of 16, they would end up beating Portugal 1-0. They beat Paraguay in the quarterfinal 1-0 as well. Once they made it to the semifinal, they would beat Germany 1-0, and then they would go on to beat Netherlands 1-0, as they won all of their knockout games 1-0. The game-winning goal was scored by Andres Iniesta in the final, as Spain would be responsible for securing all clean sheets on the way to the end. In the 7 games he played, Ramos would go on to concede only 2 goals, he would finish with 5 clean sheets for the entire tournament. And then even looking at how Spain would go on to fare in this 2010, they would go on to win the FIFA World Cup. This would, of course, be the first time that they have won the FIFA World Cup ever in their country's history. So, of course, that was historic in itself. And even just looking at how the World Cup itself would go on to play out from this, Sergio Ramos would go on to be one of the main defenders. He would make the all-star team of defenders following this incredible performance within this incredible tournament. And following Spain's win at the Euros in 2008, this would be the second time that he had won a international tournament, a very big one, while playing for Spain. Also, hilariously, Spain also dropped the World Cup trophy during their parade, but the 2010 season will live on, and Sergio Ramos is a very big part of Spain's lockdown defense throughout the knockout round. Following that World Cup win, Sergio Ramos would return for his sixth season with Real Madrid in 2010-2011. Now he had a superstar teammate from Manchester United in Ronaldo's very first season taking over. Real Madrid would go on to finish as runners-up. Ramos would start 30 of the 31 matches he played. He would finish with 3 goals and a couple of assists on the offensive end. And on the defensive end, he would go on to make sure that the team would concede 25 goals in the 31 matches he played. He would go on to make sure that the team finished with 14 clean sheets in the matchups that he played. In addition to finishing as runners-up in La Liga for the third year in a row, this year they would go on to win the Copa del Rey final as they went all the way to beat Barcelona 1-0, as Ronaldo would end up scoring the game-winning goal to give Real Madrid their first Copa del Rey win since 1993, ending over a decade of a drought of winning that trophy. So, of course, that was a very big win for Real there as well. And taking a look at how they fared in the Continental Cup, or before I get there, Sergio Ramos, of course, would, like I said, do his best to make sure that they did that. But in the Champions League, he would go on to play 8 games in a run that would see Real Madrid eventually get knocked out of Champions League in the semifinals by Barcelona. He would play 8 games as he would allow 5 the team would allow 5 goals, and the team would finish with 5 clean sheets in those 8 games that he played. So that is, of course, how that season would end for itself as well. But following his very first Copa del Rey season, he would go on to play in his 7th season with Real Madrid in his age 25 season in 2011-2012. In that season, Sergio Ramos would start all 34 of the La Liga matchups he played. In a season where Real Madrid would win La Liga, this would be the 3rd time that they had won it in his first 7 years while being there. In that La Liga season, he finished with 3 goals and 4 assists. This would be the first time he put together 4 assists in a season, and so far as the only time in a domestic season that he would ever finish with 4 assists. Looking at how Sergio Ramos and the team fared on the defensive end, they would only concede 28 goals in the 34 matches he played, as the team finished with 12 clean sheets in all of the matchups that Sergio Ramos played in. Looking at how they fared outside of La Liga, staying within Spain. In the Copa del Rey, the tournament that they won the year before, they would end up losing in the quarterfinal as the team that knocked them out. Barcelona would go on to win to the final and beat Athletic Bilbao. And taking a look at how they fared in the Supercopa de España, they would finish as runners-up, and Barcelona would beat them there as well. They won 5-4 on aggregate. And looking at how Real Madrid fared on a continental scale, they would make it all the way to the semifinals of Champions League for the 2nd year in a row. As in 2011-2012, they would see their end losing to Bayern Munich on penalty kicks. Bayern Munich would go on to the final and then lose to Chelsea, but that's how that season would end. But that would be his 7th season with Real Madrid, as the trophy he was able to take home was La Liga. After that, he would go on and compete with Spain at the Euros, as they were the reigning Euros champs and the reigning World Cup champs. In Euros, Spain would go on to win the 2012 Euros to continue their incredible streak of just playing incredibly dominant soccer. But this was, of course, the end of their three-peat. In their third of the three-peat, they would go on to make it out of their group stage. They would beat Italy 1-1. They would beat the Republic of Ireland 4-0, and they would beat Croatia 1-0 to make it into the quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, they would beat France 2-0, as both of their goals were, of course, scored by Xabi Alonso. In the semifinals, Portugal would end up drawing with Spain, but Spain would end up advancing past Portugal on penalty kicks, as Sergio Ramos would sink the third penalty kick to get Spain all the way through to the final. Once they made it to the final, Spain would beat Italy 4-0 to claim its third Euros title, its second in a row. And since 2012, Spain has not won the Euros tournament, but they have, of course, won a medal since then. But of course, that is how that specific tournament would end, as right now Spain has 3 Euros. 2 of them are in big part because of Sergio Ramos. In that 2012 Euros, of course, he would really kind of do his best to help Spain win, like I said, win that back-to-back. But of course, following that Euros title, Sergio Ramos would return to Real Madrid for his 8th season to end his very first half of his stint there. In his age 26 season in 2012-2013, Sergio Ramos would start all 26 of the La Liga matchups he played in a season where Real Madrid would go on to finish runners-up in La Liga after they had won the year before. Within this specific La Liga season, Sergio Ramos would finish with 4 goals. In addition to all of that, he would also make sure that the team conceded 24 goals in the 26 matches he played. He finished with 9 clean sheets. Taking a look at how they fared in the Copa España, they would finish, Copa del Rey. In the Copa del Rey, the Spanish domestic tournament, they would end up losing in the final to Atletico Madrid, as Atletico Madrid would end up winning this one in extra time. They would end up winning the Supercopa de España, however, as they would end up winning on away goals versus Barcelona. So that would be how, as Ronaldo would score 2 goals in that aggregate, but that would be the second time that they had won the Supercopa since Sergio Ramos had gotten there. And additionally, taking a look at how they fared in Champions League. For the 3rd year in a row, Real Madrid would end up getting knocked out of the semifinals of Champions League. This year, they would end up losing to Borussia Dortmund 4-1 before Borussia Dortmund would lose to Bayern Munich in the final. So that's how that Champions League season would end. But of course, this would see the end of Sergio Ramos's first half. And even by the end of his first half, he had seen 3 La Liga wins. He had won the Copa del Rey in Spain once. He had won the Supercopa twice. He had won the Euros Championship, the European Championships with Spain twice. He had won the World Cup, of course, as well, as after his first half in Spain, he has not won an international cup anymore. But after that, you would see his trophies, at least when it comes to domestically with Spain and even just internationally with Europe, you see his trophies really start to tick up as you see Real Madrid start to enter their stride. In the 9th season that Sergio Ramos was at Real Madrid, which of course would be Sergio Ramos's age 27 season in 2013-14. He would start all 32 of the La Liga matchups he played in a season where Real Madrid would finish 3rd in La Liga. Their 3rd place finish was the first time since 2004 that they weren't either the winners or the runners-up in La Liga. However, in the other 2 tournaments, the other 2 competitions they would compete in, they would go on to win. In the Copa del Rey within Spain, they would go on to beat Barcelona in the final 2-0. That would be the second time that Sergio Ramos has won the Copa del Rey with Spain. And since 2014, Real Madrid has not won Copa del Rey. They would also go on to win Champions League this season as well, looking at their road all the way to the final once they made it through group stage, with Galatasaray being the other team in their group. They would go on to beat Schalke in the round of 16. They would beat Borussia Dortmund in the quarterfinals. They would beat Bayern Munich 5-0 in the semifinals. But then they would go on to beat Atletico Madrid 4-1 within that particular final. That would be a very big win, of course, for Real Madrid. That would be the first time that Real Madrid had won Champions League since 2002 in over a decade. And of course, Cristiano Ronaldo would be the team's leading scorer for about the fourth year in a row, just to give a sense of about the context there. Even though they finished third in La Liga, that would be a very historic season that would go down for Real. Following that season, Sergio Ramos would compete with Spain at the 2014 World Cup. This was after Spain were the defending champs. Spain would not make it out of group stage in 2014. They would end up losing to Netherlands in the first game, 5-1. They would end up losing 2-0 to Chile. Their only win would be a 3-0 win versus Australia. So after beating Netherlands in the final 2014, they wouldn't get a chance, as Germany would end up winning that World Cup. But following that 2014 early World Cup exit, Sergio Ramos would return to Real Madrid for his 10th season with the club. And in 2014-2015, I guess at this point would be his 12th season in La Liga. He would go on to start all 27 of the La Liga matchups he played in a season where Real Madrid would finish runners-up in La Liga, of course, better than third place. Within that La Liga season specifically, Sergio Ramos would go on to finish with 4 goals and an assist, roughly what he had done the year before. On the defensive side, he was able to make sure that the team allowed 25 goals in the 27 matches he played, as he had 10 clean sheets. He would go on to play 2 Copa del Rey games in a stretch that would see Real Madrid eventually lose in the round of 16. In the round of 16, they would eventually end up losing to Atletico. Atletico would lose to Barcelona in the next round, as Barcelona went on to win the Copa del Rey for the season. They would go on, or I guess after Real Madrid went on to win Champions League, they would go on to win the Super Cup versus Sevilla. They won that 2-0. And following that, they would go on to win the FIFA Club World Cup, as they would go on to beat San Lorenzo from Argentina. They would finish as the runners-up in the Supercopa de España, as they lost to Atletico Madrid this year on a 2-1 aggregate. So that's how that season would finish there. But looking at how they fared on the continent itself, in Champions League in 2014-15, immediately after winning the year before, they would go on to lose in the semifinal, as they lost to Juventus. Juventus would go to the final and go and lose to Barcelona, when Barcelona had Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, as they had a chance for an El Clasico champ. But it was a whole thing. But following that 2014-15 season, where of course the trophies that he would add to his case would be a Super Cup and a FIFA Club World Cup, Sergio Ramos would return to Real Madrid for his 11th season in 2015-16, his 11th season with the club, 13th season in La Liga. He would go on to start all 23 of the matchups he played that season, as Real Madrid would go on to finish second in the league. Specifically, Sergio Ramos would be dealing with a little bit of an injury himself, but he would still go on to play his 500th match with the club as well. Not to mention that once Casillas got transferred to Porto, Sergio Ramos would officially become the captain of Real Madrid in 2015. But while dealing with these injuries, he would go on to help Real Madrid finish with the second best record, finishing as the runners-up in La Liga, as he finished with a couple of goals and a couple of assists. His 2 goals are the least amount of goals, are tied for the least amount of goals that he's ever been able to score in a La Liga season, meaning that he's been able to score at least a goal virtually every single year that he played in Spain. Not to mention as well that in that season, Real Madrid would go on to finish in the round of 32 in the Copa del Rey. But after finishing in the Champions League semifinals the year before and winning 2 years prior, Real Madrid would go on to win Champions League for the second time in a 3-year span, creating the Galacticos era, as within this road to the final, they would go on to beat Roma in the first round. They would beat Wolfsburg in the quarterfinals. They would beat Man City in the semifinals before officially beating Atletico Madrid in the final on penalty kicks. So that would be very big, and that would be the second time that they had won Champions League in that 5-year stretch. Second Champions League trophy to add on to many for Sergio Ramos. Following that 2015 season that saw Real Madrid win their second Champions League in 3 straight seasons, Sergio Ramos would compete with Spain at the 2016 Euros. And looking at how he fared specifically within the Euros, he would go on to play 4 games in a stretch that would see Spain eventually lose in the round of 16. In this specific tournament that would take place in France. Spain would be in the same group as Croatia, as they would end up beating the Czech Republic in their first matchup. They would beat Turkey 3-0 in their second game before losing 2-1 to Croatia in the third game. As the defending champs, they, of course, would go on to lose to Italy in the very first knockout matchup as they lost 2-0. That 2016 tournament would see Portugal go all the way to the final and win Euros. So that would be a very big year for Portugal, as, of course, Spain was trying to go for the three-peat, but they were unable to do so. But following that 2016 exit, Sergio Ramos would return to Real Madrid for his 12th season with the team, his age 30 season, in 2016-2017. He would go on to start all 28 La Liga matchups he played in a season where Real Madrid would win La Liga. This would be the fourth time that they had won La Liga since Sergio Ramos had gotten there. So that would be a very big win for him. In that La Liga season, he would go on to finish with 7 goals. At that time, that was a career high for him, the first time he had scored at least 5 goals in a season. He would go on to make sure that the team conceded 33 goals in the 28 matches he played, as the team only had 5 clean sheets on the year. He would go on to play 3 Copa del Rey games in a season where Real Madrid would go on to lose in the quarterfinal. In the quarterfinal, they, of course, would find themselves losing to Celta Vigo. Celta Vigo would lose to Alaves. Alaves would go to the final and lose to Barcelona. So that's how that tournament would officially end. And then they would go on to, after their second Champions League win, they would, of course, have to play in the UEFA Super Cup that year. In the UEFA Super Cup, they would go on to beat Sevilla 3-2. And then, of course, they would go on to win their FIFA Club World Cup matchup against Kashima Antlers from Japan. And all in all, this would be a very historic season, as Real Madrid would go on to win both La Liga and Champions League this year. Out of the 4-year stretch that they had won Champions League, this was the only year that they had won La Liga. As looking at their path all the way to the final in 2017, of course, with that incredible Real Madrid lineup with Ramos at the back and Ronaldo at the front. They would go on to win their round of 16 matchup versus Napoli. In the quarterfinals, they would beat Bayern Munich to make it to the semifinals. They would beat Atletico Madrid to make it to the final. And in the final, they would go on to beat Juventus. So that would be a very big game between both teams, as Ronaldo was able to get a brace within that matchup. But, of course, this would be the third time they had won Champions League in a 4-year stretch, and, of course, they weren't even done. But following that, this would lead into Sergio Ramos' 2017-2018 season with Real Madrid, which would go on to be his 13th season with the club and his 15th season playing in Spain. In that season, he would go on to play all 26. He started all 26 La Liga matchups that he played in, as Real Madrid would go on to finish third in La Liga. First time they finished not first or second since 2014, 4 years prior. In that La Liga season, he would go on to finish with 4 goals and an assist on the offensive side. Defensively, he was able to make sure that the team conceded 27 goals in those 26 games, as within that stretch, they would go on to finish with 6 clean sheets. Specifically outside of La Liga that season, they would go on to finish in the quarterfinals of Copa del Rey, as they would end up specifically getting knocked out by Leganes. Leganes would get knocked out by Sevilla in the semifinals, as Sevilla would go on to lose to Barcelona in the finals. Specifically within that Copa del Rey, he would only play 1 game and allow a couple of goals. The team would also go on to win the Supercopa de España in 2018. The Supercopa de España win would be the 3rd time that the team had done so since Sergio Ramos had gotten there, as they beat Barcelona on aggregates 5-1. Yet another trophy for the trophy case. Following their Champions League win from earlier, where they had won for the 3rd time, they would go on to win the Super Cup versus Manchester United 2-1. They would then go on to win the FIFA Club World Cup as well, as they beat Grêmio from Brazil. They would go all the way to Champions League this time, and they would go on to win Champions League for the 3rd year in a row in the fourth year in a 5-year stretch. And let's not forget, this is the same dude that won 2 Euros in a row and won a World Cup in between. But looking at how they were able to make it all the way through, they won their first matchup versus PSG to make it to the quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, they would beat Juve 4-3 on aggregates. In semifinals, they would beat Bayern Munich 4-3. They would then go all the way to the final to beat Liverpool. And in that particular matchup, they would win 3-1 with Gareth Bale getting a brace in that matchup. Since 2017-18, Real Madrid has not made it to the Champions League final. And that is 2017-18 is, of course, the last time that Real Madrid and Sergio Ramos have both won Champions League. But following that 2017-18 season, this would lead to the third World Cup, the fourth World Cup that Sergio Ramos would compete with with the Spanish national team. In this 2018 World Cup, Spain would end up drawing with Portugal and Morocco. Their only win in the group stage would come against Iran. Once they made it to the round of 16 versus Russia, the host team, they would actually end up losing on penalties. They would lose 3-4 on penalties, and that is the last time that Spain has been to the World Cup, as I believe they are one of the teams that have qualified for the World Cup this year. But of course, following that 2017-2018 exit, or I guess following that 2018 exit from the Euros, Sergio Ramos would come back for his 2018-2019 season, which would, of course, for him be his 14th season with the team. In Sergio Ramos' 16th season playing professional soccer in Spain, he will go on to start all 28 La Liga games he played in a season where Real Madrid would finish as the third best team in Spain for the second year in a row. In that season, he would go on to add 6 goals for himself, as he was also able to add an assist. On the defensive end, the team would concede 31 goals in 28 games as the team would finish with 10 clean sheets. This is the year where Ronaldo left for Juventus, so of course the team wasn't exactly, they weren't exactly bouncing right back exactly where they needed to, but they were still a very impressive and formidable team in Spain that everybody in Spain needed to get through. But of course, within that season, or at least within Spain, they would go on to make it to the semifinals of the Copa del Rey before they ended up losing to Barcelona. Barcelona would go to the final just to lose to Valencia that year. Specifically within that, the Copa del Rey, he would score 3 goals in the 6 games he played, as the team had 2 clean sheets. He would go on to play 5 Champions League games in a stretch that would see Real Madrid lose in the round of 16, as they would end up losing in this particular round. They lost to Ajax. Ajax would make it all the way to the semifinals where they lost to Tottenham. Tottenham would lose to Liverpool in the finals, so that's how that continental season would end. The only trophy that Real Madrid would take home this year would be the FIFA Club World Cup that they were able to win because they won Champions League. They were able to beat Al Ain, as they were the team that won out of the UAE. They would lose, however, in the Super Cup to Atletico Madrid. They lost 4-2 as Sergio Ramos actually scored Real Madrid's second penalty kick. Not to mention that in 2018-2019, in Ronaldo's first season in Juve, this would be when Sergio Ramos became the designated penalty kick taker, and he finished with 5 penalty kick goals on the season. But that's how that year would virtually end. But this would transition into Sergio's 15th season with the Real Madrid club, and in his 17th season in Spain in his age 33 season in 2019-2020, a season that, of course, was affected by COVID. It delayed the end of the season. He would go on to start all 35 of the matches he played in a season where Real Madrid would win La Liga. This would be the 5th time that they had won it in his 15 years in Spain. So, of course, that would be a very big momentous season. The first time that they had won post-Ronaldo. In those 35 games, on the offensive side, he finished with 11 goals as he had 6 penalty kick goals, his season with the most goals in La Liga and in a domestic season to date. His 6 penalty kicks are the most penalty kick goals that he has in a season. The team would allow 20 goals in the 35 matches he played, as the team finished with 17 clean sheets as well. So that's how they fared specifically within La Liga, winning a very big La Liga season. They would go on to lose in the quarterfinals, however, of the Copa del Rey. In the Copa del Rey, they would end up losing to Real Sociedad, as Sociedad would eventually win the championship of that tournament over Athletic Bilbao. As within Copa del Rey, Ramos played 2 matchups as the team allowed 4 goals. In Champions League, Sergio Ramos would only play 5 matchups in a season that was, of course, affected to the sense that in the knockout stages, they didn't even have second legs after the round of 16. However, in the round of 16, before COVID actually hit and ended the season, Real Madrid would actually lose to Manchester City, as Manchester City would lose to Lyon in the quarterfinals. Lyon would lose to the eventual champs Bayern Munich in the semifinals. So that's how their continental run would try to go. However, they would go on to win the Supercopa de España this year, as they were able to beat Atletico Madrid in the final off of penalty kicks, as Sergio Ramos's penalty kick would be the penalty kick that advanced or that gave Real Madrid the trophy that year. So that would be his 15th year. This would lead to his 16th and final year with the Real Madrid organization. In his age 34 season in 2020-2021, he would start all 15 of the matchups he played for a Real Madrid side that finished second in all of La Liga. In the middle of the season, he would actually go on to tear his meniscus in his left knee, which would be an injury that is, of course, that he's still trying to recover from even today, as he's slowly trying to get himself back with PSG. But in that final season with Real Madrid, before it all came to an end, he would go on to start all 15 of the games he played in La Liga, as he added a couple of goals on the offensive side. On the defensive side, he was able to make sure that the team conceded only 12 goals in the 15 games he played, as they finished with 6 clean sheets in La Liga. He would go on to play 5 Champions League matchups in a stretch that would see Real Madrid eventually go on to get knocked out in the semifinals of Champions League. Once they made it all the way to the Champions League, Real Madrid would eventually lose to Chelsea, as Chelsea would go on to win the tournament. But that would be the last full season that was really played in soccer. But after that, Sergio Ramos would go on to sign a 2-year deal with PSG, as of course he is still coming back from injuries. Sergio Ramos has only played 4 Ligue 1 games this season, as he started both of them. But right now he's doing that for a French team that is currently sitting on top of France right now. PSG, or I guess looking at where they're sitting in Ligue 1, PSG is currently, at this moment, sitting 12 points clear of second place Marseille. So it looks as though they're going to run away with this. But even as Sergio Ramos is slowly looking to inch his way back, it's really looking as though next season may be the season where he may be fully ready, where his knee may be ready for action, as he has not even played a Champions League game this season. He also played a Coupe de France. But so far in this season, he was able to score a goal, and he was able to help PSG secure a couple of clean sheets, as there is not much this year that he has done with PSG, but of course, naturally it makes sense, especially over this last calendar year. But of course, with that said, I do want to thank the Wikipedia, the Pro Football Reference websites, the FIFA, the La Liga, the the Transfer March websites as well, for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed for this episode. I really do hope all is well. And looking back on Sergio Ramos, I think that when he comes back from injury, I think that he will come back and prove to the rest of the world why he has so many trophies at the defensive spot, when you have hundreds of millions of players that are competing for his very own position. I think that when it's said and done, he will be remembered as one of the best. And I still think that even when it's not said and done, while we're right here, I still think that Sergio Ramos still is one of the best. If you ever get a chance, I would recommend watching him before he retires, or before he leaves before he's no longer on a top level club. I would recommend watching him. He's wearing number 4 for PSG. And of course, I imagine he'll be throwing it down for Spain at the World Cup this summer, as he is, of course, the captain of Spain, I believe, still. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening. I do hope all is well, and I will catch you with more tomorrow once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are over. And of course, hopefully by this time next year, if Sergio Ramos is still on my list, I will, of course, fill you in on what's happened in the year. So thanks for listening. I hope all is well. Once again, today is Wednesday, March 30th, 2021. I'm James Sims. Thanks for listening to this piece, and peace out. I'll catch you with more tomorrow.